Does God exist? Does God still interact with us today?
Here's the good news. God is alive and showing up in people's lives today in the 21st century. These are the stories of how he reveals himself and is working in the lives of real people through the miracles, the mayhem, and the mundane of life.
Hello and welcome. I am Hollis Moore.
And I am Lori Spiker. We are two friends whose faith journeys have become intertwined as we felt called to share God with the world in a unique and different way. So here's our podcast.
By sharing people's stories, we transform how we relate to each other and how we relate to God. Be prepared to experience the unconditional love of God in new and unexpected ways. And be prepared to proclaim, "Oh my God is awesome." Welcome to the Oh My God Pod. Hello and welcome to the Oh My God Pod with Hollis and Lori. We're so glad to have you listening and now, drum roll, watching us on your favorite video platform. Yes, you can finally see our faces. So if this is your first time hearing us or watching us, and for many of you it will be because today is our first video cast, please hit the subscribe button and get notifications when we post new content. So Lori, I need to take a deep breath because here we are. We've been talking about this for a while. Can you believe it's finally here?
I know, this is really awesome.
Yes. And like all week leading up to this recording, I've been what my kids call nervous sighted because this year, moving into our second year of podcasting, we have some awesome things that are rolling out. We are going to reach even more people to share God in new and exciting ways. And this video cast is one of them. So Lori, I want to ask you two questions because I'm going to do a mini interview. How are you feeling today? And then after you share that with us, please give some metrics and statistics to our listeners because gratefully you have been keeping track of all of the data this past year, which is not something I'm interested in doing. So I thank you so much for doing that. But yeah, tell us how you're doing today.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, it's good to see everyone if you're here for the first time. And yes, today is a really big day for us because we can finally reach all those people that don't want to have anything to do with podcasts, which I know sounds really crazy. But I have found that a lot of people just don't do podcasts for whatever reason, but yet they'll watch video content all day long. So now we are able to reach that group of people. And now we're able to share God with even more people in this really cool way and hopefully grow our listener base. So yes, I am absolutely excited, Hollis, just like you. And in fact, you guys, this episode right now is airing on our 1 year anniversary, our 1 year podcast anniversary, April 5th. So if you've been a listener like of our audio content, thank you. If you're new, thank you. If this is your first time on video with us, we're really excited and welcome. And you guys, we're growing. We've grown a lot in the last year. So if you want to connect with us and partner with us and get involved, reach out to Hollis or I. You can find us on our website. You can reach out to us on social media or our Facebook group. So a lot of cool things are coming up, like she mentioned. So, but to get into the stats that she also had asked me about, let's see. So you guys, this is really cool. Since April 5th, 1 year ago, we have launched 54 episodes. We are being listened to in 40 different countries. People have downloaded the podcast over 10,000 downloads, so 10,000 times. And we were nominated for Colorado's Best New Podcast and Best Fans, which I would also agree with. So God has done some really cool things through us, through our guests, through our listeners. And I'm just really excited to see what he's going to do in 2021, Hollis.
No, those are some awesome stats. 40 countries kind of blows my mind. Who knows how, God is using this podcast to reach people around the world. So that to me is super exciting. What else is super exciting is we have our very first guest today, for the video cast. And so since she's a friend of Lori's, I'm going to kick it over to Lori again and have her introduce our guest today.
Yes. So this is really exciting, you guys. I can't think of someone better to help us kick off a new season and our very first video cast. We have someone that I know and that I admire very much, Lindsey Fischer-Sullivan. And let's see, I first heard her speak about 6 years ago at my church. And she was speaking on the topic of human trafficking, kind of how she came to learn about it. And she was explaining to us the journey that God had set her on, and then ultimately how it led her to creating a nonprofit. And so I will just say this about her. I was like in complete awe. So first of all, she's like in her 20s. She's super bold and she has so much passion for this cause. And like, Lindsey, you were on fire for Jesus that day, like complete on fire. Like, I will never forget it. And so I'm sure like listeners and people, if you've ever been in the room with someone or you've just heard someone speak that is on fire for Jesus, you just know that their energy is different and that there's just something different about them. So that was my first experience with Lindsey. And she's the founder of All Worthy of Love. I will let her describe to you guys what that is. But I have been able to join her Detroit, Michigan outreach team a couple years ago. And so now I get to learn and serve with her, which has been a blessing. And so Lindsey, hey, welcome to the Oh My God pod. And will you just introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself with our listeners?
Yeah, thank you all so much for having me. Congratulations on your 1-year anniversary.
Thank
My
you.
name is Lindsey. I am 33. I'm pretty sure I'm 33 years old. I live in Austin, Texas, and I am the mom of 2 wild boys, 2 and under. So I definitely have my hands full, and I founded All Worthy of Love almost 9 years ago. And so I've been working with victims of trafficking for well over a decade and working with individuals in communities of marginalization and just reaching and meeting some needs. And human trafficking is definitely a ministry that I'm very passionate about. But as you guys will hear today in our podcast, that it's definitely not what I ever thought I would be doing in my life. And God has definitely set me up in such a way that you can really just not even explain it other than it has to do with the Lord. And so I'm really excited to be on today and share with y'all.
Awesome. Well, and we like to start off all of our interviews with just some context on how you grew up. If you grew up in faith, will you just kind of explain to us, was faith a part of your upbringing and how did you come to know the Lord?
Sure. It started from birth. My mom prayed, had a hard time getting pregnant and prayed for a baby and wasn't in a right relationship with the Lord. And she had a dream one night, and in her dream, the Lord came to her and said, I'll give you a daughter, but you can only have her for a short time, and then I'm going to take her back for myself. And so my mom just thought I was going to die young or something. She just wasn't sure. And she took me to church when I was about 2, 3, 4 years old. And then we had a really wild tragedy in our family happen. My mom's 2 brothers were killed on the same day in an accident. And then Christmas morning, 3 months later, her dad died. And from there was kind of a split in the church with my family. And I was only 6 years old. And so I did not grow up in the church. I did not know about the Lord. I wasn't involved in anything of the sort. And then when I turned 18 years old, I left Michigan where I grew up and I moved out to Austin, Texas. And I just wanted to just live it up and have a good time. And God definitely wasn't on my radar at all. And shortly thereafter, I was out on a boat with a bunch of friends that I had met, and someone invited me to a small group. And so if you don't grow up in church and you're not involved in church, small group is like a Christian term for hanging out. And so I just thought we were going to hang out. So I was like, yeah, I'd love to go to your small group. And so then I showed up and they were doing a Bible study. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? And how quickly can I get out of this? This is the most uncomfortable time of my life. And they just kept talking about God the whole time. And I literally just sat in the corner and I was just like dying inside. And at the end of the night, they talked about going out and serving the homeless on that weekend. And I was like, well, I'm from Detroit. We don't talk to homeless people. Like, I grew up, you don't look at them, you don't make eye contact, you just keep driving. And so I was very uncomfortable with the idea of doing something like that. And they just kept pursuing me. I got Facebook messages and phone calls. And I really don't know why, even to this day, why I showed up that day, but I did. And I sat through a whole message that they were sharing the gospel with individuals that found themselves in predicaments of homelessness and drug addiction. And I just kept listening to them talk about this Jesus that loved them. And it just really resonated with my heart. And at the end of the message, they went and they were serving. And again, I just felt really uncomfortable in my own skin. And I went and sat on the street corner. And this man came and sat next to me, and I, like, my heart was pounding, and I was like, oh gosh, what do I do? What do I do? And he looked at me and he reached into his pocket. And of course, in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. And then this man pulls out a fully loaded crack pipe, and I was like, okay, I'm really gonna die. And he says, will you take this away from me? I don't want to live my life like this anymore. I want to live my life for God. And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh. And I was driving home and I thought to myself, if this man who has absolutely nothing can give up the one thing that he finds his worth and his value in to live his life for God, then what am I doing? And how can I live my life for him? And so that night I went home and I was talking to my mom, and she told me about that dream that she had. And she said, this is the moment. This is where Jesus gets you back. And I gave my heart to the Lord. And I was about 19 years old at that time. And I have been on fire and serving God with all of my heart ever since that moment, sitting on the street corner. And I decided that day that I would always serve the homeless and the drug addicts in my community.
Wow, Lindsey, that is a remarkable full circle, because in my head, I'm waiting for the time when your mom shares the dream and, you know, what that meant. But that was very, very clear for all of you. I wonder, you know, in that time period, you know, between 6 years old when you had some family tragedy and then around 18 or 19 when you had this experience, like, was your mom going to church? Like, you say it sounded like you were not even familiar with who Jesus was.
So I definitely knew who Jesus was. My mom did not go to church. Our family did not go to church. I even remember being in high school and asking my parents to send me to a private school and take me to church. And I would like beg them to take me. And my mom did every once in a while, but it wasn't anything like, I'm saying once in a while, like once every 5-6 years, kind of once in a while. It wasn't anything consistent. And so Jesus wasn't talked about. Church wasn't something that our family did. It wasn't that we didn't believe in God. It wasn't that we didn't acknowledge God's presence or anything like that, but it wasn't anything like my life is now, or how, you know, the home that I'm trying to cultivate with my family is.
And so, Lindsey, when you say, you know, at 19, you gave your life over to Jesus, will you just explain for listeners? I just want people to really understand like what that means and how it doesn't have to, it's not a big thing of rules. Like, what did that mean for you?
Yeah.
And then did you feel differently afterwards?
Sure. I think that for me, it definitely wasn't a big to do. I was sitting alone in my apartment. It was just basically a private conversation. And it really was like the first time that I acknowledged God, where I sat and had a conversation through prayer and just said, I don't, like, you can have me. Like, this is what it means. Then you can have my heart. And I don't know what that means. I didn't know anything. I didn't have any idea what it would look like to participate in a small group, to go to church on Sundays. And honestly, I went to a small group for 3 years and served the homeless every single Saturday for 3 years before I ever stepped foot into a Saturday or Sunday morning church service. And so it really took me a very long time to wrap my head around what it even meant to be a follower of Jesus. And so it really was the small group that kind of taught me about what it meant to be a part of a church body, a church family of believers. It really was the small group that taught me about prayer and taught me about, you know, the basics, that God the Father and Jesus is his only begotten Son. And it was just basic theology. And through that, you know, spiritual maturity is the reapplication of elementary truths. And so elementary truths being God the Father, Jesus the Son, 3 in 1, the Holy Spirit. And so these were things that most children, you know, if you grow up in a lifestyle where you attend church, learn in Sunday school. And this was something that was completely brand new knowledge to me, as you know, in my late teens, early 20s, that I was just learning for the first time. And so it definitely wasn't something that was complicated at all, but because I was interested in learning, it became something that I almost like craved. And so it was like a whole new world: Christian music, small groups, gatherings, serving the homeless, meeting new friends. I met so many friends through serving and getting involved in my community that it just became like almost like a whole new life. And from there, it was the desire to party and to drink and to go to bars and to do things that I wouldn't now do in my life just slowly faded, because I was just way more interested in doing things that were represented in the Bible.
Yeah. And isn't that, yeah, thanks for that. Isn't that so, it's just so interesting. And it really is true that God will change our desires. He will change what we think about. He will change our taste in music, or what we're, compelled, or, to watch or listen to or read to, or, or read or look at, or whatever it is. Yeah. It's like when you say yes to him, then he just like, I mean, it's not, you went through a transformation, it seems like.
It totally was a transformation. And it was, I want to say that it was smooth, but in the moment it didn't feel smooth. In the moment it felt like a lot of shedding. It was almost like coming to realization about so many things about myself that I never understood that finally made sense. I think that God creates us with this innate desire to serve and love people, and he crafts each one of us with different gifts and talents. And when you're not living your life for God, like I grew up, I wasn't living my life for God, but I always had this desire to take care of the homeless man that was standing at the corner panhandling, to give my clothes to families, or to donate things. Like I always had all these desires, and none of them made any sense until I finally came to know the Lord. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is who I am. This is who I've always been. I just had no idea that this girl was inside of me.
Aw, yeah. Okay, will you then, let's move a little bit forward in your journey from serving the homeless consistently in your early 20s. Now kind of move us into, how did you hear about human trafficking?
Sure. Well, I think that your listeners will pick up pretty quickly that I'm pretty set in my ways on a lot of things. And so for me, I loved serving the homeless. So that was all I was going to do for the rest of my life. And no one could ever convince me otherwise. I loved drug addicts. I loved homeless people. And so I found myself several years later living back in Michigan. I decided I was going to go back home and finish my degree. And so I have a degree in biblical counseling psychology stuff. And so I wanted to be able to reach people from a biblical perspective in the counseling arena. And through that, someone at school invited me to go and listen to someone by the name of Rob Morris speak. He's the founder of a nonprofit called Love 146. And I'd never heard of him before. I had never heard of his ministry or anything like that. And I was just, hanging out with my friends. And so I decided to go. And that night changed my entire life. And he said two things that have forever marked my heart. He said that the previous year, Americans alone spent $16 billion on Valentine's Day to show one person that they were loved. And that the entire world for a whole year, not just one country one day, but the entire world was enslaving at the time 27 million people at an industry rate of $32 billion. And so I'm very analytically minded, and I'm doing the math, and I was like, one country one day spends $16 billion to show someone that they're loved, and there's 27 million people that are currently enslaved. It's a $32 billion industry that communicates that you're not loved, that you're not valued, that you're not believed in. And I just couldn't reconcile that in my head. No one teaches you in school or growing up anything about human trafficking, slavery. If anything, they're telling you that slavery has been abolished, Ruha, America, the Emancipation of Proclamation, no one's talking about it. And so for me to learn that there's 27 million people enslaved, I didn't understand why it wasn't on the front page of every single newspaper every single day in our country, why it wasn't on the 5 o'clock news every single night, why we weren't educating and protecting our children from this demon that was out there that was prowling and, snatching children and trafficking and enslaving women and forcing servitude. And so all this stuff is going on in my mind while he's talking. And I literally have phased out his entire conversation until the very end. And he closed his speaking engagement by saying that Ending human trafficking is not idealistic or naive, it's audacious. And it's people of audacity that change the world. And I walked out of there and I was like, God, I don't know what you're going to do with my life, but I want to be a woman of audacity. I want to change the world. And so I went home and I started researching all these facts. And y'all, this is, 10, 11 years ago. And so human trafficking didn't even have a name at this point. No one was talking about it, let alone doing anything domestically, at least that I was aware of. And so I started doing all this research. And the more that I read, the more that I was just completely sick over it. I was losing sleep, and everybody that I wanted to talk to about it, nobody even had heard of it. And so a week after this engagement, it was the week before Valentine's Day. And my roommate and I were hosting a Bible study at our house, and our friends were coming over, and one of the girls walked in, and bless her heart, she said, "Hey Lindsey, what are you doing next week for Valentine's Day?" And I was like, "Nothing, did you know?" And I just started listing all these facts about human trafficking, and she's like, "Oh, okay." And so that night I completely zoned out of Bible study, and I did what a lot of people do in the 21st century when you're upset about something. I went to Facebook. And I probably had 600 friends at the time, so I probably knew half of them in real life. And I created a Facebook event, and I called the event Worthy of Love. I scheduled it for 1 week out on Valentine's Day. I listed all these facts that I had acquired over the previous 7 days of human trafficking. And at the end of it, I just challenged my peers to redirect their spending from Valentine's Day, thinking of the novel idea that if Americans alone could just stop celebrating Valentine's Day and give $16 billion to combating human trafficking, then maybe we wouldn't have 27 million people enslaved. And after I set that up, I was like, all right, I did it. My work is done. I'm going to go serve the homeless tomorrow. And I just never thought anything would come out of this silly little Facebook event. And the next day I woke up and the event had doubled in size, and I had 52 emails in my inbox saying, "What the heck are you talking about?" And the long short of it is that a week went by, and there wasn't the term viral at the time, but if there was, the event had gone viral. And I was doing interviews with the National Human Trafficking Director for Stop Child Trafficking Now in New York City. I had done a news interview. I was on 2 radio interviews, and I didn't even know what I was talking about. But all of these doors just started opening, literally falling at my feet. And so I was like, well, I should probably learn more. And so that was how I initially found out about human trafficking.
And so how did you, because from there, you went to Thailand.
I did. So
yes,
from there, I was planted in a local church, and it was during worship one day, and a little gal came over to me and she said, "I really feel like you're supposed to go to Asia." And I remember looking at her and I was like, I'll go anywhere but Asia. And I don't have anything against Asia. It's just a 22-hour plane ride. And that's just a really long time to sit still. And so there's nothing against it. But I was like, I'm not going to Asia. And so that evening I was researching human trafficking stuff, and I came across anti-trafficking mission trips. And I thought, this is my thing. And so I clicked on it, and it was to Thailand. And I was like, oh. And so I felt like it was my Christian duty to the Lord to apply for this trip, but I had resolved in my heart that I was not praying about it, because if I didn't pray about it, God wouldn't make me go. I had a lot to learn. So I didn't pray about it for a whole week. And then I was parked outside of my college, and I had a 1-hour interview with this missions department scheduled on my phone. And 5 minutes before the call, I leveled with God, and I was like, look, God, I am not going to Thailand. And so if I have to go, you need to make it undeniably clear to me. And so about 5 or 10 minutes into this 1-hour conversation, this lady interrupts me while I'm talking. And she's like, "I'm so sorry, I never do this, but I just feel like your calling for this trip is undeniably clear." And so I went to Thailand, because what are you supposed to do when something like that happens? I mean, y'all, I didn't even fundraise for it. The trip was $3,500. Somebody else organized a whole fundraiser for me that 100% covered all of my expenses for the trip. God literally was pushing me on an airplane. And so I went to Thailand, and I had no idea what to expect. It was the second time I had ever left the country. I brought my knee-high skirts for all the days that I was going to be there. I just had no idea what to expect. And I was convinced at that point that human trafficking was a third world problem, that it wasn't a United States of America problem. I live in the land of the free. And so I was going to go there and do something about it. And the very first night that we were there, we went to a red light district called Pat Pong. It's the second most notorious red light district in the world. And we just started doing a prayer walk. And I just saw the worst things that I've ever seen before. I mean, I've 12-year-old, 11-year-old girls all wearing the same dress with numbers attached to them as if they had no identity, no value, no worthiness in the world. And what I saw was that they were being purchased by white American men. And these men were like as old as my grandfather. I mean, it was absolutely repulsive to me. And it was almost like everywhere I looked, I was seeing transaction after transaction after transaction until I literally just couldn't even walk anymore because I had run out of things to pray to God. And so at the end of the night, it was like 2:00 in the morning. We came back, our whole team, for a debrief, and we're sitting in this big circle, and I was next to the team leader. And so I ended up being the last person to go. And I remember sitting and listening to every single person debrief. And for a lot of them, it was what they expected. They were more prepared than I was. It was a lot of prayer. It was a lot of processing. And then when they got to me, I said, well, I hate men. So can we talk about that for a second? Because I never want to go back to America again. And I just was like, just deeply, deeply disturbed. And that night, they prayed two very specific prayers over me that I really believe have changed the course of my life. And the first thing that they prayed is that God would give me a heart for the trafficker, the same that he'd given me a heart for the trafficked. And the second thing that they prayed over me was that God would move my feet to make a difference in whatever and wherever that looked like. And so for me, at the end of that, I want to say that I felt lighter, but I didn't. I felt even heavier. And as the weeks went on and we were there, I remember the very last night I was doing a prayer walk and I was praying, and I really felt like the Lord spoke to me that he took me to the worst of the worst so that I could do something, but I needed to go back home to my own backyard and do something about it. And now you'd think that I might have been trained or prepared, but I did not know that this was an issue where I grew up. I did not know that this was a United States of America problem. And so I came home and I just was so deeply burdened on what was next for my life. And also, if I could just be honest, it was a little troubling, and I was a little upset with God because I thought we had already figured out what we were doing with my life. I was working with drug addicts. I was working with homeless people. I was involved in an amazing nonprofit that I was working alongside. I never wanted to start a nonprofit or have the responsibility that it took to lead and launch something. I just wanted to go and be a part of something that already existed. And so I came home and I just felt very conflicted in my heart, and I looked up like websites, worthyoflove.org, Worthy of Love Facebook, and everything was taken. And I was like, well, sweet, I don't have to do it. And that night, God has only spoken to me in super vivid ways, maybe 3 times my whole life. And that night I went to sleep and I had a dream. And in this dream, I saw the most massive hands I've ever seen before. And on them were the fingerprints of every single person who's ever been misplaced through slavery. And it was God telling me that it's not enough that people are worthy of love. It's that they're all worthy of my love. And so I woke up the next morning and I couldn't get all worthy of love out of my head. And so I went online and everything was available. And I knew that I had to do it. I knew that it wasn't even a choice anymore. And I feel like so much in this journey, this almost decade, that God has literally just needed a yes from me. He literally lays out it all for me, and I just have to say yes. I just have to be willing to be burdened for the causes that break his heart. And he just has, it's just been a really beautiful journey, this whole time of just learning, and I guess just learning how to be obedient to what the Lord's asking me to do. And so that's really how All Worthy of Love began. And through a series of that, learning, I just was researching that, how do I reach victims? What does this look like domestically? And what I learned was that the number one contributing cause of human trafficking is pornography. And I thought, well, great, I'll just take down the porn industry, no big deal. And then I read that the second most common cause of contributing factor of human trafficking was street prostitution, and the third would have been strip clubs. And so I was praying and I decided I had to do all of it. And God was like, calm down, child, pick one thing and be really good at it. And so, at the end of the day, I really didn't think I could take down the porn industry. Maybe not in my 20s, maybe in my 30s. but I didn't think I could take down the porn industry. But I did know that I'd seen prostitutes in my life. And so I started doing research on where women and men were getting arrested for street solicitation. And then I started meeting with people. I met this woman, Donna, who was just an angel in the flesh that literally just taught me everything. And she was like, this is how you do street outreach. This is what, people that you reach out to need. And she basically took me on the streets and she taught me everything. And then after a year of training, she said, okay, I'm done. Go and do it. And I was like, what do you mean go and do it? And at that moment, I realized that everything I ever wanted to do, God honored. I love reaching drug addicts. I love reaching homelessness. And you know what? I've never reached and held the hands of an individual entangled in street prostitution that wasn't addicted to drugs and wasn't homeless. And God literally honored every single part of my heart and crafted this amazing ministry that was even better because it had everything to do with his heart too. And so it's just been a really beautiful journey.
And so, Lindsey, when you went to Thailand, what year was that? And then how soon thereafter did you officially start All Worthy of Love?
It was 2011, and I started AWOL 2 years later. And so it was not something quick at all. And even, we applied for our nonprofit license in 2012. It took 18 months to get approved. And so that whole journey was just a very lengthy process, but we were doing outreach the entire time. We just weren't official. And so officially we're from 2013, but that's just on paper. You can reach people without paper.
And
Absolutely.
this was in Detroit, correct?
Yeah, this was all in Detroit.
Okay. And when you say we, this is you and Donna?
So I guess
Ooh.
we is like me and God.
Okay.
Yeah. So, well, it's me, it's the outreach team, it's Donna, it's God, it's everybody.
Okay.
I've never wanted it. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but at that time, before it was official, you were doing this with friends?
My friend Jamie and we linked arms with Donna, and Donna trained us on everything. And then when we always say very affectionately that she kicked us out of her car, Jamie and I just started going out every week. I would borrow someone's car. My friend Tim, I would borrow his car every single Monday. I had a friend, Kim, that made all of our lunches, and we'd go and buy the supplies. We transformed all of the closets in my apartment, my roommate Erica and I, into hygiene kit facilitation, and we would make all the hygiene kits. And so it really was kind of like just the boots on the ground, and everything that it is now is kind of astonishing when we look back at where we started.
And so, Lindsey, you said that Donna taught you everything that you need to do in street outreach and what those particular individuals need. So what are their needs, and then how do you serve those?
So the first vital need is people need food. They need to be fed. It's not something that people come across as easily and as, sustainably as one might think. And so the very first thing that we started doing was we would provide meals for them. The second thing is that they're homeless. And so when you're homeless, you don't have a running water, and you don't have a shower with a loofah and, body wash and stuff to pick from. And so the second thing was that they needed hygiene products to clean themselves. And so that's how we meet immediate needs. We meet immediate needs by providing lunches, hearty sandwiches. And I always say, if we're really supposed to be feeding people like we would feed Jesus, then I would give Jesus the best sandwich I've ever made in my entire life. And so we set really high standards on what those lunches look like, because I think, when I think about what Jesus would be doing here, if he was walking the earth today, I really think Jesus would be doing what our outreach program was doing. I think that if no one's, preaching the gospel in these remote areas that most people, myself back then included, drive by, then how are people ever going to know that there's a God that loves them and that they can turn their lives around? And so we pass out lunches and pass out hygiene kits, but then we also meet eternal needs. And so every single person that we reach out to gets a handwritten note of encouragement. We remember their names. We hold their hands, which is a very big deal. Having physical contact without expecting or asking for anything in return is just a game changer for the individuals that we're reaching out to. And so we look them in the eye and we remember their names and we pray for them, and we just ask them, like, how can we support you? How can we love you? And then we go a step further and we just say, like, here's a 24-hour hotline number. If you need anything, you call us and we will be your family. We'll walk through recovery with you. We'll walk through restorative care with you. And so it looks different every single time that we roll down our window and we reach out to individuals. But that's okay, because every single person has different needs and they all, need something different. And so it looks a little bit different. But the core message is that you're valued and you're loved in for no other prerequisite other than Jesus Christ died for you.
And so I have another question along those lines, because you said it looks different every time you roll down your window. Like what neighborhoods do you know to go to? And how do you know that that person standing there is possibly a street prostitute or not just waiting for a bus? Or,
Yeah.
I mean, that the practical way of like engaging with people, how does that happen?
Well, I'll first tell you, Hollis, that everything that I do well, it's because I messed it up along the way. And so it's been a labor of love, of just trial and error and learning. And I would say a decade in, I can tell you who's working the street from 2 miles away. I know by the way they're walking, by the way they're carrying themselves, by the way their eyes and their heads are moving. And so that's just street knowledge that you learn along the way. But I would say, so what our outreach does is we take a team of 4 out and we get into a car and we drive down to the exact same neighborhood every single week. I think that's super important to note, is that God is a consistent God. And so our outreach ministry is consistent. And so how did we come to those locations? I looked up arrest records and zoned and prayed, and I did prayer drives. And I'm in Austin, so I have a location here. I did a prayer drive for 1 year every single week before I felt like the Lord told me that was where we were supposed to do outreach. And so I really pray through the logistics of what it would look like. And then once we decide we're going into that neighborhood, we're always going to be into that neighborhood until there's no longer a need, which ultimately is the goal, right? And then we'll move on to the next need. But we do roll down the window, incorrectly, and we'll see people that are just waiting for a bus stop. And that's okay, because that's my favorite. I'm like, oh no, I'm just passing out lunches to everyone in the area. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. Or I'll get cussed out, and either one is totally fine. So it looks different. And, I would say that because we go to the same neighborhood and we have been in the same neighborhoods for quite a number of years, everybody knows us. Everyone knows our cars. Everyone knows what time of the week we come. For certain areas, we go out at the exact same time every single week. And so these are individuals that wait for us the whole week, that they all know, they call us the prayer van. We don't drive a van. We've never drove a van, but we're the prayer van. And so they wait for us and they know us. And I think that they rely on us a lot of the times, that, for most of these people, this is the only meal that they're getting all week. And so it does look different every time you roll the window down. And I would say the conversations vary from person to person. Not everybody accepts it. Sometimes you roll your window down to an actual victim of trafficking and they tell you to go and that they don't want anything to do with you. And you know what? Next week I stop for them again. And if they say no, that's okay, because the next week I'm going to stop for them again until eventually they're going to say yes to me. I'm very persistent. And, it's all in good faith. It's all in good love. And people, I think that they truly feel valued just by someone who's just pouring into them and just loving them exactly where they're at, without any intention of repayment or anything expected out of them, just pure and honest love.
Hey everyone, this is Lori. Isn't this story amazing? We'll get right back to it in just a minute. But before we do, I wanted to talk with you about All Worthy of Love. Simply put, human trafficking is the exploitation of vulnerability. As the world's fastest growing criminal industry in the world today, human trafficking affects every nation across the globe. There are more slaves in the world today than at any other point in history. Men, women, and children are being exploited for manual and sexual labor against their will. Did you know that every 30 seconds, someone becomes a victim of this modern-day slavery? All Worthy of Love is a justice-focused nonprofit organization that reaches out to men and women enslaved by street prostitution in Texas, Indiana, and Michigan. We prevent sex trafficking through awareness by educating the community. We rescue victims of trafficking through weekly street outreach, and we restore victims of trafficking through partnerships with local organizations that offer safe housing and restorative care. Our weekly outreaches are completely supported by donations. We provide lunches, hygiene kits, encouragement notes, and seasonal goods depending on the weather. We're always in need of your donations in these categories. If you feel led to join in the fight against human trafficking, you can go to allworthyoflove.org, or reach out to me personally via my Facebook page or in our Oh My God Pod Facebook group page. I'll also have the link in the show notes of this episode. Okay, now back to the story.
So have there been times where there's confrontations and forgive my ignorance on this topic,
okay.
but are there pimps, quote unquote, like owners of the girls that they're prostituting? And how do they feel about you being in this neighborhood every week?
Sure. I think that's actually one of the most common questions. So you're not ignorant at all. I think a lot of people are like, whoa, you're doing anti-trafficking work. That has to be really scary, isn't it? And I would say, sure, it's scary when you forget that it's scary. It's dangerous when you forget that it's dangerous. And so ultimately we are doing something that, isn't always safe, but it's necessary. And so I trust that, I'm going to be wise in all of, the knowledge and the experience that I have, but I'm also going to trust God. And I will say that in the decade of doing this, I've probably had interesting things happen one or two times. I've never felt fear for my life. I've never felt afraid. We have quite a few security measures set in place as far as like taking a last seen picture where we know we're at, having someone track the vehicle the entire time that you're on outreach, letting us know when you get on the streets, when you get off the streets, the person in the front rolls down the window and the person in the back. I mean, it's a very well-oiled machine. But it hasn't always been that way. I mean, when I started, I was knocking on the doors of crack houses and people just thought I was crazy. And I was crazy. Okay. I totally was crazy. But God taught me things and I learned. And so as far as working with pimps goes, yes, a resounding yes. And I always tell our team, you're not ready to love the prostitute until you can love the pimp, because the two people are entangled in bondage and they're both worthy of being set free. And that comes back to that prayer that was prayed over me back in Thailand. And it's, I've seen God work a miracle time and time again, where when I roll down my window, I don't say, you can come to my car, but you can't. I say, everyone can come to my car. Jesus didn't tell us to clean the fish and then catch them. Jesus just said, catch the fish. And so when I'm rolling down my window, I'm just trying to catch fish. It's up to the Holy Spirit to clean people's lives up. That's not my job. It's my job to love people. And so, yeah, a pimp is doing something wrong. But, I think of conversations that I've had with individuals that were working as pimps, where someone said, you know what, this is all I've ever known. This is what my granddaddy did. This is what my daddy did. This is what I was raised to do. This is all I've ever known. And so there's so many people that just have no idea that, God has something different for their lives. And all they need is just one person to believe in them for the entire trajectory of their life, and subsequently 15 or 20 other people's lives to be affected as a result. And so we have rescued pimps. I know one person in particular, that person that I had that conversation with, he said, will you help me get a job? I don't want to make money off of selling women anymore. And I said, done. Got him a job 5 days later. He said, it's not enough money. I need another job. Got him a job, 2 jobs. Then he came back and he's like, I need 3 jobs. I need to be completely out of this. So I got him 3 jobs. He left the neighborhood. He stopped trafficking women. It's been 8 years now. He's married. He lives in another state. He's completely turned his whole life around. And I mean, this is like a generational curse. This is what his grandpa did. This is what his dad did. This is what he was trained to do. He never knew anything different, but all it takes is one person, just one person to say, tell me your story. How can I help you? Let me believe in you. You're worthy of love to change everything. And so, yes, we do reach out to pimps, and it's just as necessary as reaching out to the trafficked.
That is an amazing story.
And Lindsey, to kind of tag on to that, you have a quote that is pretty infamous within those of us that are in AWOL, within our teams. And I love it. This is Lindsey's famous saying: people know what's wrong with them. They need to hear what's right with them. You say that all the time. And that goes along with everything that you said. And so words really matter. And the prayers that the teams pray with the individuals, anyone that comes up to our cars, can you just kind of just share some insight into why do words matter so much? And then, how can words really change people's lives?
Yeah, that's really great. I was a little worried about what quote you were going to come up with. I'm glad you picked that one. Yeah, I think, when you're rolling down your window, you're looking into the eyes of a woman who already knows everything that's wrong with her. She's already ashamed of herself. She already feels disgusting. She already feels used and abused and mistreated. She already has zero value or worthiness. And that's because that's constantly what's being embedded into her heart and her mind. And so when I roll down my window, I only have 1 to 2 to maybe 3 minutes of her in my presence until she's back off with these individuals that are just continually reinforcing this message of unworthiness. And so for those short moments, if I can tell her that she's beautiful, if I can tell her that she's loved, if I can tell her that God has a plan and a purpose for her life, then that matters, because it's the one bit of truth that she's going to hang on to. You know, people do know what's wrong with them, but they need to know what's right with them. If somebody says, tell me your favorite thing about yourself, the first thing you're going to think of is 5 things that you dislike about yourself, because society has trained us in such a way that we can't be proud of our accomplishments. We can't boast about things. And sure, there's a time and place for humility, and there's a time and place for pride. And of course, I understand all of that. But what I'm really looking for is the heart posture that people know that I am good because God is good. Jesus did good, and out of his good, I get good. I get to love people. I get to speak truth and love and value into people. And through that, my life was changed. Your life was changed. And these individuals that we're reaching out to, the hope and the prayers that their lives will be changed. I really believe that, you know, if you keep telling someone that they're not smart, they're not going to become smart. If you keep telling someone, you're so smart, I love the way that you think about that process, I love the way that you came to that analogy, walk me through how you got there, they're going to have more confidence, and they're going to think that they're intelligent. And the more that you think you're intelligent, the more intelligent you'll be, because you're more eager to learn things, you're more confident to strive and to seek out things. And so I really do believe that our words matter. I think that, you know, especially when it comes to your name, I think that Dale Carnegie said, the sweetest sound to the human soul is the sound of their own name. And that is because identity is everything. And so when we're going out on outreach and we're rolling down our window, we send out the same people week after week after week, because we want to remember people's names. We want to remember their stories. We want to communicate. Look, I'm not just here to give you a lunch and hygiene kit here. I'm here for relationship. I'm here for friendship. I'm here so that you know that your life matters. And so when I call you by name, it's because you're important to me. You know, Jesus calls us by name, and it's because we're important to him. We matter to him. And so if we matter so much to him, then how much more should the individuals in the marginalized communities and walks of life, should they matter to us who seek to be believers of Jesus?
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsey, I really want to talk about this, because this is even from the beginning when you started serving the homeless, and you were saying how when you grew up, I mean, I grew up this way too, and I was taught this too. It's like, you don't look at homeless people.
Yeah.
We don't talk to them. It's just a completely different world and life. So what do people need to know about the homeless and drug addicts? Like, help us disband these stereotypes. Sure. And then after that, what do people need to know about street prostitution and women that are addicted to drugs and homeless and prostitutes? Help us, you know, abolish those stereotypes also.
Sure. I think that to abolish stereotypes, it has to go back to what we're taught as little kids. You know, when you are driving with mommy and daddy and they tell you not to make eye contact with the man or the woman that's sitting on the street corner, I think that's where it starts. I think that empathy is taught as much as it's caught. And so I think, you know, raising the next generation to be empathetic thinkers, I think really is the first, you know, step in the right direction. But I also think that, you know, I tell people all the time that you think, a lot of people, and myself at one point included, you think that human trafficking is this far off and distant problem. But I guarantee every single person that's even listening or watching this podcast has driven right past a victim of sex trafficking, and we have failed to make eye contact. And I love this scenario with Jesus, and he always stops. It says that Jesus walked into a town and he stopped. Jesus came into the city and he stopped. And I think so much of us, especially in this Western culture, we're so busy. We have to get to the store. We have to pick up our groceries. We have to pick our kids up. We have to do all these things that we miss this world that's right on every side of us. You know, our outreach location was 12 minutes from my church. 12 minutes from my church, 15 minutes from my front door. And I had no idea that people were being bought and sold this close to my house. I remember one of the girls that we saw, I graduated with her, y'all. I literally graduated high school with her, because it starts with a drug addiction. And so this goes into your second question. I think that one of the biggest misconceptions is that, well, people sell themselves for sex because they want to. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't choose to be abused by choice. I wouldn't choose for somebody to rape me and to beat me and to leave me in the streets by choice. I would never choose that, especially as a woman. I would never, ever say, yes, please take advantage of me. This starts honestly through an addiction. It starts from a place of unworthiness. It starts from the nuclear family that's crumbling before our eyes across America and across the world. I mean, it really starts with the brokenness of childhood and just so many layers. And I would say that every person that I've met, it all started with drug addiction. It was stealing grandma's painkillers. It was dad smokes pot, so I can smoke pot. It was, well, I was in high school and someone handed me this pill, or, it's just this desensitized view of addiction. And so does a woman want to sell herself? No, but will a drug addiction tell her to? Yes, every single time, because a drug addiction controls every single makeup of your mind. This is really why I went back to college. I wanted to understand, how does somebody come to a place where a substance controls them so much that they're willing to just succumb to it? And so what I learned was that what pimps in America look like is they look really much like a drug dealer. And so I always say that a drug dealer is the pimp. And so the drug dealer will say, oh, here's a free extra hit. So the woman's addiction gets a little bit higher. And then he says, oh, you did really great yesterday. I got this from a friend, and he gives her a little bit more. So much so that she builds this addiction that's not sustainable financially, not sustainable, physically. And so she'll do absolutely anything to get this drug, because this drug now controls her entire life. And so when he says, well, you owe me X amount of dollars, what other way is a drug addict supposed to get the money? I mean, it literally backs you into a corner where we come to one of the two most demonic areas of our culture. It's sex and it's drugs. And so a woman will sell herself 15 times because her body is physically dying, needing this drug. And so what does a pimp in America look like? It looks a whole lot like a drug dealer to me. And I think that we have such an issue with narcotics really, guys, I'd love to do everything. I'm like, I want to take down narcotics. I would love to, because there's just so many contributing factors that are eating away at our next generation that are just going to keep cycling this over and over and over again. And what I'm really praying and hoping that our outreach program does is we say, stop, like, no more generational curses. Like, you can get clean from drugs. You can be re-reconciled with your family if they're, wholesome and good people, healthy for you. Like, there can be an alternative way. And I think that's the message that I'm really trying to convey through our outreach program is you don't need anything to get a better life, because you have us. We're going to walk through recovery with you. We're going to be there the day that you get out. We're going to hopefully come and mentor you if you'll allow us. And then when you get out and you want to be re-reconciled with your kids or get a GED or start your life back, we're going to be there. And I think that, it's a commitment that is not for the faint of heart by any means. Going back to when I started this, I would have never chosen human trafficking to be my thing. But I'm so grateful that I said yes. I'm grateful every single outreach, every time I read a report about our teams going out, every time that I get a letter in the mail from a girl that's in recovery, every time that I hear it. But none of that stuff happens unless somebody says, I'm not okay with this happening in my own backyard. I'm not okay with this happening in my world. And because I'm not okay with it, I'm going to do something. And so wherever you're listening in any country or, area of the United States, there's anti-trafficking organizations that are popping up left and right. Thank God, because when I started this, nobody was doing anything. But now there's so many ways that people can get involved and can look up different organizations and say, yeah, I want to be a part of the change to my generation and to the one coming after me.
Yeah. Can you just give some stats on, since you started AWOL, how many rescues has the team had? And then generally speaking, how are the women doing? Like, when you get out of this life, just explain for people what's possible for them.
Well, I will say that I do believe anything's possible, but also I'm a realist. And so 94% of individuals who exit the lifestyle of street prostitution or drug addiction return within 4 to 6 days. And so there's a young lady that we have rescued 12 different times. And I say rescue because she's the one that does all the hard work. We're just a means and a vessel of that. But she keeps going back. And it's because the drugs control so much. And so we're there every single time that she's ready to make that call. And I would say that as far as rescues go, I used to place a lot of value in the success of, well, we rescued someone, so now we're successful. And I really worked hard to get away from that mentality and that thought process, because I would say every time that we rolled down our window, that's our success rate. And so as far as rescues go, they are far and few between. Last year, we reached out to over 7,500 different people across all of our locations, and I think 16 said yes. And so when you're doing the math and you're calculating a percentage of that, it could be really, really discouraging. But it says in Galatians that do not grow weary for sowing good, for in due season you will reap a harvest. And so it's our job to plant these seeds. It's God's job to nourish and grow them in his perfect timing. And so as an organization, we've had well over 150 rescues. We passed out over 10,000 meals last year alone, 10,000 hygiene kits. We met with 7,500 individuals. We had over 285 outreaches. And so we're definitely out, boots on the ground every single week, but it's not enough. It's not enough. There's so many people that are yet to be reached, and we have something that works. And so when you're looking at vision and what's next for the ministry, I need to duplicate. It's not even a matter of if I want to, I have to duplicate it. I have to duplicate this outreach program to as many areas that I can, because it's something that works and it's necessary. And I think for as long as there are people that are being bought and sold, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to do what the Lord has called us to do and to reach as many people as we can. And so that's something that's constantly on my heart, is not so much as the women that we have reached, but all of the women that we haven't reached yet. It's like there's so many more out there that need to know that they're worthy of love, and it burdens me. And so, my goal and my vision is to be in all 50 states. And my board of directors, one of my directors, Kelly, has just really challenged me that it's not enough to be in all 50 states, that there's hundreds of countries that need it too. And so we've actually just started our beginning conversations of expanding outside of the United States. And I'll leave that spoiler alert if I get to come back on the second anniversary of your podcast. But we're looking at, growing beyond the four walls of just our nation, because there's a lost and a hurting and a broken world out there, and they need to know the message of Jesus.
So, Lindsey, you mentioned, that it's very daunting and it's a huge, audacious goal that you have. How do you remain encouraged to keep doing the work that you do?
Well, I would say that it has a lot to do with growing with the Lord. I think, man, it's so hard. If I'm just being really honest, I think ministry is hard, and being the leader and having the responsibility on your shoulders is heavy. I mean, these are things that keep me awake at night all the time. When my husband and I got married, I said, you just have to understand that there's another person in this marriage, and it's AWOL. There's another child in this marriage, and it's AWOL. And it's because so much of my life has been dedicated and given. I mean, I literally gave my entire 20s to serving, and I had nothing. I mean, my whole life was serving. And so there's been so many seasons where I've been discouraged. There's, especially like in the pandemic that we've just, are still in, we had 40% of our givers had to drop out. And I look at the needs are just growing, and the donations are decreasing. And I feel the pressure of that, when I need to just say, God, I trust you. God, I trust that we've never gone on an outreach that you haven't provided for. And I don't believe that we're ever going to go on an outreach that you haven't provided for. But as the leader of it, I carry the burden, and it weighs me down so deeply that the only way that I can be encouraged is to stay in the window. And so I always tell my board, the day that you tell me I can't go on outreach is the day that I'm not leading this, because I have to be reminded of the why behind what I'm doing. I have to be holding hands. I have to be looking in the eyes. Last night I was on outreach here in Austin, and it's just so broken. Everything is just so broken to me that, you'd say, how do you get encouraged through the brokenness? Because I've seen people get redeemed. I've seen myself get redeemed. I've seen so many others get redeemed and get restored. And all it takes is one person to believe in you. And so I have to keep going. I don't have a choice. And so it's hard to stay encouraged. It's hard not to grow weary. It's hard when, different various churches don't want to support you because they want you to have a safe house. And you're like, how do you think people get to the safe house? Like, somebody has to be going and telling people that there's a way out. Victims of trafficking don't just knock on a door of a safe house and say, hi, I'm being trafficked, please check me in. Like, it doesn't work like that. I mean, it's so hard to not get discouraged. But I think that, our society has still so much to learn. I have so much to learn. And I think that through having conversations like this and being able to share and talk about, what the next regular person can do to make a difference. I think that's really how we start to improve. And I think that keeps me encouraged. The more that people, want to be a part of it and want to, grow and reach out to people, I think that's what encourages me and sustains me. And also that God's just really kind, and he's not afraid of me when I say I don't like doing this ministry sometimes. He's not afraid of it because he knows that in 10 seconds I'll have a 2-minute rebate and I'll be like, I love it. Thank you so much.
Lindsey, that kind of brings me into what states is AWOL in now? Tell listeners. And then how can people help?
Sure. So we're currently in Michigan, Indiana, and Texas, and then we're looking at Tennessee, California, Florida, Arkansas, and Louisiana right now. And so my plate is very full. I would say that the best way that your listeners can be thinking about getting involved is I have the means, I have the vision, I have the structure to grow it, but I need leaders from all over the country, all over the world to say, I can do that. I can organize teams. I can set up outreach in my city because I can't be everywhere. But I believe that one of my favorite things that this ministry affords to so many people is that it's never been Lindsey Fisher's ministry. It's always been God's ministry. It's always been about people getting involved. And so if you're listening and you're like, I don't live in Michigan, Indiana, or Texas, I live in Idaho and I want to make a difference, then great. Fill out an application on our website, allworthyoflove.org. Tell me you're interested in starting a branch of AWOL, and I will fully fund you for your first year of doing outreach. I'll come there. I'll set everything up for you. We'll supply all of your hygiene kits. We'll teach you everything that you need to know. I just need you to say yes. And so if there's people that are listening, they want to get involved, and you're like, I don't want to be the leader, but I do want to get involved, then start writing notes of encouragement. You can mail those from anywhere, and we can pass them out on our current outreaches. Or be praying for us on our outreaches. Check out our Facebook page, All Worthy of Love, our website, allworthyoflove.org, Instagram, Twitter, all the goods, and just kind of see what the Lord's saying to you and how you can make a difference.
And then I have a question to piggyback that, Lindsey. It seems to me that we need a shift in our culture, because if there is no demand, then there is no industry, correct? So can you speak about that for a minute?
Yeah, I always think about Lori and how she parents her boys. And I'm about to be parenting 2 teenage boys in a few years. And it's a scary world to be a parent. It's a scary world to have the responsibility of the next generation. And I think that our phones are our greatest weaknesses. I think that the computers is our greatest weaknesses. We're looking at porn is so rampant, and the more that you sexualize a world and a generation, the more the demand is going to increase. And I think that it's really teaching and making people aware of what their choices are leading to consequentially. And so I think, a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm just buying sex from this person. It doesn't mean anything. And they have no idea. They genuinely, I don't think, have an idea that this woman answers to somebody at the end of the night, that she has to bring home a quota of stuff. I think that education is key, but I also think that, you have to look at it from a whole worldview picture. And, I asked myself this question 10 years ago, why is this not on the front page of every single newspaper? And unfortunately, I'm sitting here 10 years later and I still am asking that question. Why is this not on the front page of every single newspaper? Why is this not a class and a curriculum in every single public school system across America? Why is this not something that we're teaching and educating people and parents on about internet safety, about teaching our children about, Snapchat and all of this terrible TikTok stuff, like my poor kids are going to have to live in the woods because I know too much. And I feel like if most parents knew the stuff that I'm aware of, they would feel the exact same way. I think that we have to educate people. We have to do a better job at making the next generation, and honestly, the current generation and the one above us, aware that this is an issue and we're contributing to it. I think when people watch and engage in porn, they're like, well, she looks like she likes it. Well, yeah, because she just got the snot beat out of her 15 minutes ago. And if she doesn't smile and look like she likes it, then it's going to happen to her again. Porn is literally thriving when it comes to human trafficking. And yet we have, 4 billion clicks every 30 seconds of people that are accessing porn in just our country. I mean, there has to be something that changes. If you can shut down an entire platform on the internet in 30 seconds, then why are we not taking down all of the means to sexualize predators. I don't understand it. You know, I guess I could get on a lot of tangents from every avenue, and I won't bore your listeners with that, but I will say that it has been a labor of my love to get involved politically in things of this nature, to write and lobby for new laws. And in Michigan, I lobbied for 21 new state laws that criminalize sexual exploitation. That, you know, now there's a new law in the state of Michigan that every time that you go into a strip club, you pay a $3 tax to the state, and that money has to go to domestic violence victims. And so I would say that if you're going to be a part of the demand, then you need to be a part of the solution too. And there's still so much more work that we can be doing. And so I've only just begun.
No, I think you're right. That is the tip of the iceberg, but that's so important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to go back to too with, you know, people getting involved. And this is, I'm just going to read a quote, Lindsey, that you put on your story submission. And you've said it a couple of times here already.
Sure.
You just said, I've been transformed in so many ways, but ultimately I've learned that God wants my yes. And beyond that, he will do what only he can do. So
Yeah.
I think that just kind of ties into, if someone's listening right now and they agree with what you're saying and something's nudging at them and they want to do something, but, you know, we all have a whole host of excuses as to why we can't. You know, we don't have time, we don't have the resources, we don't know anything, or we're just scared, right? I think to your point, if when we just say yes to God, then he really will do the rest. Like he will really line up everything. He will make the time. He will provide the resources. He will give us the skills that we need. And all we really just need to do is say yes when he's nudging us.
Yeah, I think that it's such an important value and lesson for all believers to just really come to a place of understanding that it's not us that accomplishes things, it's God through us. And knowing that God is ultimately the worker of all things that are good. I think that we put so much pressure on ourselves to, well, I have to do this and I have to do that. Y'all, I started that Facebook event and I knew nothing, and look at all that God has done with it. I mean, that was the first thing I said was, wow, I really need to educate myself. I had no idea. I mean, I think about Lori, when you were just talking, I had a memory flash into my head that I haven't thought about for, gosh, probably 20 years. I remember being 14 years old and I was standing on stage for something and the MC asked me a question and I froze. I literally made a complete fool of myself on that stage. I froze and then I just left. I walked off the stage and I was mortified. And now you look at what the Lord has done in my life. I mean, half of my time when it comes to ministry is spent speaking on stages and educating people. And I mean, that had nothing to do with me. God has given me an anointing. I mean, it literally has, God will just do anything with your yes. And I think of like, I have no business being in some of the positions that I've been in, but I'm willing. If God asked me to go, I'm going. Even if it's a 22-hour flight, I'm going. And so I think that a lot of the times we just have to take the pressure and the focus off of us and we have to put it on God and we have to trust him, like that he'll introduce us to the right people. But with that also comes with a responsibility from believers is to put yourself out there. I mean, I created a Facebook page and invited everybody I knew at the time. I mean, I literally was like, hey, somebody pay attention to what I'm doing. I'm really upset about this. And God was like, I see that. And I raise it 15 notches and I'm going to give you this. And so I think that we just have to trust that God is going to do what only he can do. And through that, it takes the pressure off of us. It takes the responsibility off of us and it puts it on him. And thank the Lord, he's more than capable of carrying it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh. Okay. We have covered a lot of things, Lindsey. Yes, I feel like we're probably coming to the end of our time here. But before we kind of close this all out, is there anything else that we didn't ask that you want to share? Or, and I guess we always like to end with, what do you want people to know about God?
That's a good one. What do I want people to know about God? I think we did cover a lot of ground, and I hope that the resounding message that I could leave with your listeners and those that are watching is that God has a plan and purpose for all of our lives, and that there's nothing that we can do that disqualifies us from that. And every single day is a good time to start over if you feel like you've been disqualified from something. I think that what I would want people to know about God is that it's not over until it's over. And I think Jesus represents that on the cross. I think that, God represents it through the redemption that's completely threaded through our Bible and our source. But I would just say to believers that, especially in times like we're all living in right now, that we have to get in the Word. We have to be reading our Bibles. We have to be more disciplined about hearing and knowing God. We have to be able to discern His voice above all the other people that are trying to talk. And we just have to be more diligent in our prayer lives. And I'm speaking to myself. I mean, I need to be more diligent in those areas of my life too. And I think that when we really strive to know Him better, that He makes Himself more known. And when He makes Himself more known, the plans and the purposes for our lives are more clear.
Amen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Lindsey, as you know, we like to close all of our interviews by praying for our guests online, on air. So
Sure.
how can Hollis and I be praying for you today?
I would say that going into this year, after what a wild 2020 that we've all gone through, is I would say just be praying for an increase of people that want to sign up and be on our physical team, an increase of people that want to sponsor outreaches as far as lunches and hygiene kits, just an increase of people that are willing and feel comfortable and safe to be a part of the team. I think that 2020 just instilled a lot of fear in a lot of different hearts, and it's completely understandable, but I still have so much work to do. We still have so much work to do. And so I would just say, I would love prayer for just the laborers to join the harvest, because it's plentiful and we need more.
All right, you got it. Let's pray, guys. Oh, Father God, thank you so much for this time that we got to spend with Lindsey and hear from her. And God, I just want to start out with just thanking you for the anointing that you did put on her life. And thank you for the gifts and the talents that you have given her, Lord. I know that, her words and her actions have absolutely inspired me and many, many, many others to, into action. And God, we just want to pray first and foremost, just Lord, that you would do something miraculous in this 2021 with AWOL. God, that you would do something that can only be explained through you, Lord, that people would listen to the call, that people would raise their hand and say yes, even though they're afraid. God, we just want to thank you in advance for all those who are willing to donate financially, for all those, God, this year that would be willing to donate their time, all those, Lord, we just really want to pray that people would take Lindsey up on her offer, that there would be hands that are raised and emails that are sent, God, in all of the states this year of people raising their hands saying, yes, Lord, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, Lindsey, please help me, but I'm available. And Lord, we just pray all these things through your name. Amen.
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 Well, thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. It was really good to see you. I'm all fired up by you all over again every single time that I get to hear from you. So thank you.
Thank you guys so much. It was so fun to meet you, Hollis.
Oh, absolutely, Lindsey. This has been an honor and a pleasure. So as we close out our podcast and our video cast for the day, I wanted to say thank you to our listeners and our watchers. Let us know how you consumed this content today. Were you listening or were you watching? I'm curious. And then, of course, connect via our links in our show notes, which includes AWOL, so you can continue to support Lindsey and all of our other guests. And join us on the next episode of the Oh My God Pod.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Oh My God Pod with Hollis Moore and Lori Spiker. We want you to know that God desires a relationship with you, just like a trusted friend.
Our desire for you is to find hope, inspiration, and connection through today's story. And we hope that you will experience God in your own unique way too. Stay connected and share your stories by joining our Facebook group, visiting our website, ohmygodpod.com, and of course, subscribing to the podcast. And remember, oh my God is awesome.